Hello guys, I am back again. I haven't talked to you guys in, it must be like 5 or 6 weeks now. I don't know exactly how long it's been, but haven't spoken to you guys on the potty in so long. And to be honest, I've been needing to get back the past 2 weeks. I've been back at work for 2 weeks now, and life's been a bit hectic, let's be real. Like, I've just had lots on, and not that it really takes that long to do this. Like I've told you guys before, I don't plan this podcast very well. I literally think about the topics that I'm going to talk about, maybe write down some dot points, and then I sit down and just yap away. So like really not much at all goes behind the scenes to happen, right? But sometimes I just couldn't find the time. These past 2 weeks, excuses, I know, but we are here today for our wedding recap. Wow. Who would have thought we'd be talking about the wedding like it's been done? Like, I still can't believe it's actually happened, but I'm not going to hold you guys here forever. I literally could talk about the wedding and the planning and all that for hours because so much went involved for the day and for the weekend and for the honeymoon and all the things, as I'm sure you guys can imagine. But I'm going to keep it short and sweet. So I'm going to talk about a bit of the planning process, like sort of what I found important to me and how all of that went. And then the wedding day, sort of just like an overall summary. And then in a few weeks' time, I might come back and talk about some nitty-gritties, like some pros and cons and things I've learned and stuff like that. So if you want to know about the wedding day and the wedding prep, this is the episode for you. So let's maybe start with like the planning process, right? So we got engaged in May 2023, and I knew I wanted to get married in like a warmer season, so like the peak seasons. I wanted to get married on a Saturday. That was just my preference. And then a few other things that like were pretty important. I'm saying like me, but like Nathan as well. But we all know, like, I swear it's like 95% of males have like a very small care factor in all these decisions. He just wanted me to do what I wanted to do, and that made him happy. There were more things that he was involved in than others, but like, you know, little things, he was like, I don't really care. And I'm like, how have you not thought about this for your whole life? But, you know, they don't, so that's fine. But yeah, so we wanted to be on a Saturday, peak season. So when we're like planning out timelines, I didn't want to have to rush the process, blah, blah, blah. So the beginning of 2025 was like the idea that that was the time we were looking for. And yeah, we finished our engagement holiday where we got engaged, and I pretty much went straight into looking at venues. But to be honest, it is super overwhelming. I didn't want to do a destination wedding because I wanted our grandparents to come. In hindsight, none of my grandparents came, but that was the plan back then. So I didn't want to go too far. So the Hunter Valley was like pretty much we were sold. We were going to go to Hunter Valley, get married. Now, looking for venues, there was a few things that I wanted. I always thought I was going to get married in a church. I'm not super religious. Anyway, besides the point, but like I just always envisioned that for me. And I've spoken that into the universe multiple times to many people over the years. But then when the time actually came to organize our wedding, I just realized that maybe that wasn't the exact ceremony. Like I maybe didn't want the ceremony to run that way if it was in a church. I maybe just hadn't thought about it as much. So because I'd always envisioned myself walking down an aisle in a church, I really wanted to get married inside. That was sort of like, I wanted to be undercover. I wanted that aisle moment. I didn't want to have to walk down like a grass patch or like whatever to get married. Nothing wrong with walking down, you know, outside. Obviously, more weddings than not are outside because it's so beautiful, but that's just what I wanted. So that was another thing we were looking for when we were looking for a venue, and that sort of narrowed it down to only a few places at the Hunter Valley. In the end, we were sort of picking between Peterson's house and where we ended up getting married, which was Greystone Estate. We liked Greystone better. It was a way more like modern location, like visually, yeah, there was lots of ticks on the actual like venue, but you also could have people stay on site. And so it meant that you had up to 32 people who could stay on site for your wedding weekend, which was in the end a really big winning point for us. And it also meant that like when the wedding finished, everyone was still on site, that we could still like party on together with whoever was staying there, because in the Hunter Valley they have pretty strict noise restrictions, which I feel like a lot of places in Australia, like there's places that do, but there's, people get married in Sydney, right? And then they have like after parties that go, to 4 a.m. in the morning. But in the Hunter Valley, you can't really do that. It's like 10:30, music stops, 11 o'clock, wedding, get out, that sort of vibe. So, when you think about it, you're paying all this money and, all this preparation for it to end, maybe sooner than you'd like. So I liked that. So moral of the location story, I'm really going to try to keep this podcast short, guys, but I can already tell I'm going to struggle. So we locked in Greystone, but when we booked it, which was October 2023, there was literally only like 2 Saturdays to pick from in that March, April period of 2025. So like a year and a half to go, because that's how fast places book out. So that was the first thing we booked, slay, and then I pretty much locked in all my vendors within the next few months. So let's say I booked that in October. By Christmas, I pretty much had all my vendors booked. My celebrant, Loz from Hungry Hearts Co., was someone who I always sort of wanted. As I started to look into wedding things and, started following people after, getting into that stage of life, I don't know, she's awesome. So I pretty much wanted her. Like, I knew that was the first person we reached out to. Her husband's actually a photographer as well, so they come as a bit of a package deal if you want. It then meant that I didn't really look for other photographer because, like I said, I was sort of sold on Loz initially, and then Reese's work, the photographer, is like drop dead gorgeous. So there was no reason why I sort of needed to look elsewhere. So they were super easy to book. And then the videographer, we booked More Life Films, super well known, amazing videos. Again, I just knew that they were great and I booked them. So like a lot of my vendors that I booked initially were because they had really good reputations, really solid, amazing work, and I didn't want to risk it with anyone. And I know I could have saved money by not having these such well-known vendors, but in the end, it was my day. I did what I want to do, and there's 100% no regrets on spending more money on specific vendors for a better outcome, which I believe, and less stress on me. Like, they were all, throughout the whole wedding process, all of my vendors were so professional, in terms of like keeping us in the loop and, understanding what we wanted and maybe what else we needed to do, and communicating within the vendors, them all communicating to each other. Like, it made our process super easy. Our florist that we use, the Flower Pursuit, I'm pretty sure is their exact name. It's a husband and wife. They were both beautiful to deal with. Was recommended them from like a family friend. So again, their flowers were beautiful. And I hadn't, like, flowers were really confusing actually for me because I don't really know anything about flowers, and really I didn't really care much about the flowers themselves, but I cared about the final product, which I think is a lot of people. But like, even when I had my call with them at the like 2 or 3 weeks before the wedding, when you're like locking in the exact flowers you'll have because they sort of then know exactly what they can get for that week, I was like, I don't really care. As long as it looks good, balls in your court. Like, that was sort of my vibe. But my flowers were like iconic. Like, so many people complimented our floral arrangements, especially like our backdrop in our ceremony. So florist was amazing. A few like last minute things we added in was wedding chat, and we ended up getting like those indoor sparkler firework things. They were things that we added in later on down the track, but all like the main vendors that you need, we got super early on. And then the next step was getting my wedding dress. Now, I think when I do like my pros and cons and learning experiences, my wedding dress will definitely make a special appearance in there, because there was so much drama around my wedding dress. It was a really big ordeal, and in summary, I went to so many stores. I didn't really fall in love with any dresses. The dress that I ended up picking, I ended up picking a top from one dress and a skirt from another dress. So like I never actually tried on the dress. I bought it and hadn't really seen what the dress was going to look like. When the dress came in, it was like humongous on me, and maybe it wasn't made super well, even though it was a very well-known Australian designer who did my dress. And then, long story short, I think I had like 6 to 8 alterations appointments in my dress. Brooke from Made by B, or Bound Bridal, she has both businesses, was my alterations girl. Could not recommend her enough. Literally saved the day on the wedding dress. Well, not the day, saved the concept of the wedding dress, and I ended up loving my dress on the day. But to be honest, probably didn't love my dress till the week of the wedding, just because I never really tried on the dress that looked like the dress until I didn't pick up my dress until the Wednesday before the wedding. So up until that Wednesday, my dress wasn't ready, to fit me properly. So, and again, it wasn't Brooke's fault, as to why I was so late. She was so precise with fixing every little detail, which I loved. And yeah, about 2 weeks before the wedding, she ended up unpicking the whole skirt and did heaps to the dress. So that was a whole ordeal, but that was next. It was a good process. We went wedding shopping. I'd already had it booked in, but it ended up being a week after my nan passed away. So I think there was a lot of mixed emotions when we were going dress shopping. It was nice to be with my sister and my mum and, share this process. But if my nan was here, she would have been there on that day. So it was, it was all a bit high emotions, which I think sort of affected the dress shopping. And then I didn't even pick it that day. I picked it weeks later. Anyway, got the dress. So that was the sleigh in the end. And Nath and the boys got their suits. They got them all custom made at MB Apparel or MJ Apparel, and I think it's MB Apparel at Charlestown. The team there, amazing. We got them custom made because they ended up being about the same price. Because alterations are just so fucking expensive. It's ridiculous how much you pay to get your suit pants tailored. So yeah, that was good. Bridesmaids dresses. We bought the dresses in the December of 2023. We all loved them. We tried them on individually. We didn't try them on as a group of 4. The girls were all wearing the same dress, which my bridesmaids are the best. They were so chill. We had the chillest, funnest experience throughout the whole wedding thing. So it was fine, just as good. And then maybe 4 to 6 months before the wedding, we're like, okay, girls, we all need to try the dress on again. Everyone come over. Let's do it with the shoes, with the whole vibe. Tried them on, and we're like, we don't like them. So we then bought other dresses, which were the dresses that the girls ended up wearing, which was fine. One of my beautiful bridesmaids, Michaela, is pregnant at the moment. And was pregnant for the wedding, obviously, because I'm only recording this a few weeks later. And, we had to ensure that this new dress suited her with her beautiful baby bump, which, just surprisingly, it all sort of, worked out perfectly. The new dress, we were able to find one with, a higher mid-seam, because obviously you don't want a mid-seam around your waistline when you've got a baby bump. All the girls felt comfortable and confident in it. I wouldn't say it's a dress that they all would pick and they probably wouldn't have purchased this to wear as a wedding guest to a wedding, but everyone was like, yep, love, I'm happy to wear this. I feel good. Let's do it. So they're all so chill. They all looked absolutely beautiful on the day. So yeah, they were sort of all the things you buy and shit. But then when we got closer again, probably that 6 to 4 months out, probably that sort of period is at about 12 weeks out. One of my really good friends, Elle, she told me, she's like, because they got married last year, she's like, at about 12 weeks out, it all gets really real. And that was exactly what happened. At about 12 weeks out, all your vendors start messaging you, and then you have all of these ideas and all these things that you're planning, but like logistically maybe you haven't thought them all 100% through or 100% actioned, and then you're like, oh fuck, I've really got to do all the little 1%ers now need to be done. Like there can't be anything left. So those last 12 weeks was definitely like a busier wedding time, but I wouldn't actually say I was ever stressed about the wedding at all. Maybe like when you're paying like your final invoices and stuff, because you don't pay all your money straight away. So I think it's hard. Like you obviously budget and all that sort of stuff, you know, but all your money's just sitting in an account. So like those last few weeks, it was just like, let's just pay all these bloody invoices. You know, let me be free of having to, you know, look at this bank account and look at the invoices. Because one thing that I didn't want to do, which I don't know if it was a good thing or a bad thing, but again, all of the invoices weren't really due until some of them weren't due to like the week before the wedding. And you could have paid it earlier, but a lot of them I didn't pay until I had 100% locked in all those final details, had those final calls with them. And obviously, you know, I wasn't going to pay them late, but I wasn't going to pay them months earlier before the invoice was due, because honestly, guys, I didn't really know this, but there are so many crazy wedding stories. And I was in heaps of wedding Facebook groups, and the amount of people that get ripped off on their weddings, like, you know, they pay for these things and then people just don't show up, or, you know, then they ghost them once you've paid your invoice, like even wedding venues, like really big things. So I think that was sort of like those last like final calls with everyone, paying the final invoice. There's always stress leading into those events to make sure like everything runs smooth. And then once that's done, it was like a big relief. So I wasn't a stress bride, which is, I don't know if people are surprised about that or not, like, because I'm very organized, but I can also be a stress head. But yeah, so the final few weeks, we did all that. What else happened? Oh, then with our what they call decorations and shit for the wedding, originally I was going to keep the table settings pretty basic, maybe just candles and just sort of hire them. And I'd already got Made by Ree, who did our signage for our engagement party. I already got her to do signage for the day. We had a quote and we had a call on that. But then closer to the wedding, I was like, actually, I don't want to do any of the styling. And again, that's maybe not financially available for everyone, but for me, I weighed it up. By the time you buy and hire all the shit, you're still paying money for it. This way, yes, I pay that little bit more, but I'm paying for someone to be in charge of this task. If not, it would require me to either do the task or for me to direct the task, let's say to the wedding coordinator on the day and stuff like that. Because we didn't have a wedding planner, and the Greystone have wedding coordinators, so they can help set up, like they did. They help set up and do all those sorts of things. But they're not like a planner. Like, so if you hire a wedding planner, that's someone who literally like runs the show, essentially. Like they know exactly what needs to happen in all areas for the day. Where I guess I was the wedding planner, so I knew exactly what needed to happen for every vendor in every aspect. So it would involve me having more responsibility, or I could pay someone to have less responsibility, and that's exactly what I did. So Ree from Made by Ree, she did all our signage, all our little bits and pieces, all our welcome dinner stuff, all our table settings, seating chart, all the things. Amazing. But we didn't lock that until like closer to-ish. Again, it was like an extra thing I added on. So I guess that's in summary of like the wedding planning, guys. For me, it was pretty chill because I was very organized, and I think I created lots of lists, lots of checklists. I went to bed thinking about that bloody wedding. If I thought of one little thing, I wrote it down and I, made a plan to action it. I'm very organized, like, with my finances as well, which I think is helpful. Like, I sort of had an understanding of what I needed to play with, and, week to week, I was, like, on top of it, because I know that's a lot of a lot of the stress for a lot of people. And I think a lot of that comes from running a business as well. And I also understood in those weeks leading into the wedding that I needed to reduce my stress, which I think it's something a lot of people forget about, that, you know, stress causes all negative things, right? Stress is going to potentially cause you to hold water weight. It's potentially going to cause your skin to break out. If you're sleep deprived, you're going to feel like shit. You're going to eat like shit. Like all these things. So I was really trying to keep my stress low. I was really trying to stay on top of my sleep patterns, like all these sorts of things. So I'd pre-planned that I needed to be organized so that there was no stress. Now, let's go into the week of the wedding now. So the week of the wedding, I had noticed that the forecast was rain. Like, not just a drizzle, it was rain. And as, you know, probably the week before I noticed this, as soon as it came up on my weather app, like, what's that, 10 days out? And then I noticed, you know, every day the forecast was getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And probably the Monday or Tuesday of the week of the wedding, I messaged the bridal party, I messaged the family, and I was like, no one speak to me about the weather. Like, from now until like pretty much the day before the wedding, I'm not looking at the weather. I'm not talking about the weather. Like, do not even bring it up, because I want this week to be a happy week. I don't want to be stressed. I don't want to be, like I said, I'm trying to reduce my stress. The weather is out of my control. So me checking the weather, me stressing about the weather is not going to do jack shit. Because what I was doing for those few days is literally waking up in the middle of the night, refreshing my weather app and checking it. And I was becoming psychotic. So I deleted the weather apps off my phone and I zoned out. I was like, we're not even discussing it, right? That was fine. No one talked to me about it. My week of the wedding was smooth sailing. We got organised, packed our shit. Me and Nath actually went up to the Hunter Valley on the Thursday. We got married on Saturday. And we had a really nice, beautiful dinner. Amanda's on the Ridge or the Edge we went to, which was just like a recommended restaurant. It was a Thursday Arvo in the Hunter Valley. So it was actually very quiet. But it ended up being beautiful. Like, we sat outside. There was no one else sitting outside. People were sitting inside, but we were outside by ourselves. Watched the sunset, had this beautiful dinner. And we're sitting there and Nath's just like, so the weather. And I was like, we're not talking about the weather. And he's like, bro, the wedding's in 2 days. We need to discuss the weather. And I was like, why? What's the forecast? Because I hadn't checked it in like 4 or 5 days. And he was like, the mils of rain has like tripled. Like, Thursday, like I said, we were sitting outside. We watched the sunset. There was no rain. And he was like, Saturday is the worst day for weather. It's potential thunderstorms at 2 p.m., which is the time we're meant to get married. And I was like spiraling. I was like, this is fucked. No, I wasn't actually that bad, but I was stressing. And then I'm an overthinker. So then I'm at dinner like, blah, 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 okay, this and this and this and this, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to make a new run sheet and blah, blah, blah. Like a crazy person. Nathan's like, calm down, drink your champagne and eat your dinner. And I was like, okay. So we had a little stress on the Thursday. And then the Friday came and I was like, we've got to accept this, Olivia. There's nothing you can do but accept that the weather is happening. If the plans have to change, the plans have to change. Suck it up, bitch. It will be perfect. Like, this is going to happen. It's rained on other people's wedding days. I kept thinking of, which you guys may or may not know, like the Dillon sisters, like Rachel Dillon, who owns Move By Us with her sister Emma Dillon. And her sister Emma got married a few years ago, and it was in Byron Bay or something, and it was literally flooding the week of her wedding. And the 2 days before their wedding, they ended up moving it like in 2 weeks' time, even though like people had already traveled interstate, because literally people couldn't get to the venue because of the floods. And then when they moved it the 2 weeks later, it was like torrential rain on the day still. And I was like, you know, some people have it really bad. Like, they had to cancel their first wedding. So like, Olivia, you'll be fine. That was what I was thinking. And, you know, like I said before, our ceremony was undercover, even though ours was like in a pavilion. So we were outside, but under a pavilion. And everyone was seated undercover. So like, our ceremony wasn't going to be affected. Our cocktail hour was going to be affected because I was outside. A few things like where our seating charts and stuff would be. And our venue is obviously beautiful. So I also was just like sad that people couldn't enjoy the venue when we've paid so much bloody money to go there and then we're like being restricted. So that was sort of what was pissing me off. But again, like I said, Friday I had to accept that the weather was going to be bad. And I know this sounds weird and you're probably like, you're just saying this, but this is so true. Because my day in my mind wasn't going to be perfect. Like it wasn't going to be exactly what I had envisioned and what I'd planned for the last 2 years. I'd gone all the planning had come down to this beautiful run sheet that I'd gone through of everyone to the minute. Everything was to the T planned. And I was like, fuck the run sheet, because now we're not doing these in this order and things are changing and we're going to have to do things on the fly on the day and stuff like that. It made me chill out. Like, I was like, my thought process to everything was like, well, what's the worst that can happen? Like I just really chilled out. So it was a very weird experience. Rain, and I was like, it's fine. So Thursday, the stress. Friday, Nath went and played golf in the morning, which was like, I'm talking about it's meant to be raining a week, but he ended up playing golf. It did rain on them a bit, but it was enough. They played their whole 18 holes. We went with my family, went to breakfast, and then we just sort of did some we had to do some steaming and random things. Tracy randomly found out that her welcome dinner dress had all this dirt stuff on it, so we had to fix that issue. And then we went to Greystone, our wedding venue. And when we were there, I already knew this was happening on the Friday. The girls that were running the venue, Imogen and Meg, they were amazing. 10 out of 10, could not recommend them enough. And the whole team at Greystone. They were there setting things up already. So they'd opened the reception room and we knew that was all happening, as well as the stylist, was getting there on the Friday to also set things up on the Friday before the wedding day. Plus we had our practice run with our bridal party at 2 p.m. So we got there probably just after lunch, saw everyone, saw all the team there. We did our rehearsal, again, still not raining, but the forecast was meant to be raining that night, that afternoon. We were meant to have our welcome dinner that night. So we had a full sit down welcome dinner. We had a private chef cook us dinner. It was service, we had wait servers and stuff like that. So it's pretty formal dinner, and we were going to sit outside on this big table on the deck. The only thing that really had to change that we decided to move the dinner to inside. Again, it was this beautiful long 32-seater table. It was stunning. So that was that. We changed that already on the Friday. That was fine. And then I chatted to the stylist and the team at Greystone, and we had to make some changes for the set day. Our champagne tower had to go inside. We were doing some speeches at cocktail hour, but we decided to move them into the reception room so that we didn't have to stand outside as long. And we're potentially going to make our cocktail hour, which actually went for 2 hours, 1 hour, so that everyone didn't have to hang outside as much, because what they were going to do is transform the ceremony space, like I said, that was under the pavilion, into a cocktail hour space. But it's not it sits 80 people seated in the rows of a ceremony, but 80 people standing in there is a bit squishy. So, again, it wasn't ideal, and that's why I was let's make it shorter. Let's get the people in the reception room. We'll do all the festivities in there, blah, blah, blah. That was fine. Again, I decided that's the way life was going to go. Then we did our welcome dinner, and it ended up being a beautiful afternoon, a bit of sprinkling here and there, but we ended up having our canapes and our welcome drinks and stuff out on the deck. We got some beautiful photos outside, and then we sat inside for dinner. In hindsight, it was probably better because the lighting was nice in there. It wasn't cold or windy inside. It ended up being perfect, the Friday night dinner. Our food was delicious. The chef at Greystone, can't remember his name, but shit, he can cook food. It was delicious. And then me and my bridesmaids stayed offsite at the Vintage the night before the wedding. So we went back there probably 9:30. To be honest, everyone was very pretty tired. It's funny when you're there for such a big event, but we didn't want to drink that much. I'd probably had a few glasses of champagne, but I knew I wanted to get to bed early, and then a lot of people had work that day and stuff. So we weren't there for a rowdy night. So yeah, about 9:30, we got back to the Airbnb. We all showered, had a cup of tea like we love to do together. And they gave me this beautiful book that they had got probably 20 of my closest friends and family to write a letter, and those beautiful pictures, and my bridesmaids had all organised a day and turned off their locations because I have all their locations and hid, and they made the book together. It was beautiful. So they gave me that. We had our cup of tea. We went to bed. Next morning was the wedding. Literally woke up to the sound on the roof, like, like, guys, it wasn't just rain. It was like torrential rain, like torrential. It was so loud. And I was like, okay, wedding day, let's do it. Again, I wasn't super stressed about the rain. I sort of just kept being like, what will be, what's the worst that can happen sort of vibe. But it was a really early morning, and it was so funny because as everyone got to the door, like Courtney, my hairstylist, got to the door at like 6 o'clock in a raincoat with an umbrella, but then also drenched. Like, that's how much it was raining. It's like you couldn't go outside without getting drenched. And I was like, happy wedding day, welcome. And she's like drooping wet. But the morning of the wedding, so chill. Like, we were running really early ahead of schedule to start with. We ended up being late just because we ended up fluffing too much because we were too early. But yeah, we were hair and makeup, no issues. I ended up changing my hairstyle. I originally was going to do probably a similar bun, but I was going to just be a bit looser around my face. And it's funny. Courtney the hairstylist is actually my hairdresser and has been since I was like 14 or 15. So I know her very well. And when we'd done my trials and stuff, I'm like, cool, I have no bloody idea what I wanted. Like 1 minute I wanted my hair out, and then I was like, I do like my hair slick, but I didn't want to look like a bald rat. And then I hate it when the parts that you get left out the front of your head end up like straight pencils because like my hair drops so fast. And then I also have my extensions in at the moment. So I was like, should we utilize having my extensions like while we put my hair in my bun? So like, I'm so indecisive, but we'd end up picking this hairstyle. But the morning of the wedding, I was like, look, it's torrential rain. I think we all need to just have our hair up and done because, you know, you can imagine if you got these little curly bits and they get wet, and then I've just got those little pencils at the front, or, you know, I didn't know if it was going to be really windy. And so all 5 of us girls, we all ended up doing like a slick bun. Poor Courtney, I made her do my bun about the ponytail before my bun probably like 7 times. I think because I kept saying, I was like, I can't believe I'm wearing my hair like this to the wedding, just because I just never imagined I was going to wear my hair slick. And I have this weird thing about my ears. Like, I've always thought my ears stick out heaps, which like they sort of do. But I know, I was like, I can't believe for my wedding day, I'm wearing my hair in a slick bun. Like, I was just flabbergasted. So I made her do my bloody hair like 7 times. The girls all had their hair up. Alicia, makeup artist, she was a slay, so good. Couldn't recommend her enough. It was super easy. Mum was there, Dad was there. Photographers got there, and they were like, guys, you can probably just chill out for a bit, like we're here early. But then I got my dress. I did my first look with the girls, which was really nice. They captured all that. And then, yeah, by the time we sort of fluffed around and I got on my dress and whatnot, the photographer was like, oh shit, we're actually running a bit late to go see the boys. And we're like, oh no, that's a bit of a bummer. But that was fine. The boys just had to get dressed before the photographers got there, which was fine. We then went to Greystone, and we sort of got there a bit early so that we could get into like this part of the house and hang there before people got there. Again, torrential rain. My dad had gone to the car that many times. His white shirt was see-through. He was that wet. And we were like, John, dry yourself. So, because he was like putting things in the car and fluffing around, and he was like dripping wet in his suit. So like, this is the vibe. God bless Michaela's husband, Jordan, helped us all get out of the car, as well as the girls at Greystone. And we got in under these umbrellas. Like, we're all dressed at this stage. And we got into Greystone, and we had about 15 minutes. So we just did a bit more steaming of my dress because I'd been sitting down and like we hadn't really touched it that much. We did a few photos in the Gow house, which was the house we got renting in. And then, yeah, then it was time to get married, guys. Okay, now I've been talking for like 35 minutes. I don't like these podcasts being super long, team, because I want everyone to actually, enjoy them. Plus, they take forever to upload if I go any longer. So I think I'm going to leave you on a cliffhanger here. I've brought you all the way until we're about to walk down the aisle. So stay tuned. Next week, I'm going to do part 2 of the wedding recap. And we're going to talk about the whole day, how it went, what ended up happening with this bloody rain, and then after the wedding, the honeymoon, and all that jazz. So this is part 1. Come back for part 2 next week. But thanks for watching. Like, review, subscribe. I put this on Spotify, Apple Music, as well as YouTube. You can watch me on the videos. And then after this wedding one, we'll get into a bit more gym stuff because I'm doing high rocks, guys, and I think we're going to have to talk about it. Anyway, catch you later.